Upadhyaya Mitrulandariki Namaskaram. Greetings to all of you. As of now, we have excellent and wonderful new textbooks. All these textbooks are prepared according to the APSCF 2011 for the classes from 1st class to 9th. In this regard, I request all of you to pay your complete attention towards the video programs produced by State Institute of Education Technology, Hyderabad. Try to understand the philosophy of all the new textbooks, methods, techniques of teaching and classroom activities, etc. I also request you to follow and implement them in classroom teaching. Strive very hard to achieve all-round development of all your students in your classroom. Thank you, and I wish you all the best.
Dear teachers, SCERT AP Hyderabad has initiated the curriculum revision and prepared the new textbooks. We have so far developed from class 1 to 9th. In 2012-13, so 6th and 7th class we developed and reached the schools, and this academic year 13-14, the 8th and 9th have been reached the schools. Now all the teachers are using the new textbooks in high schools. So in this backdrop, some of the teachers have some problems and issues and some doubts regarding to the new textbooks and the classroom process. And today we have Dr. K. N. Anandan. He is a linguist and expert, and he is one of our textbook editors of English. And we have YGK Murthy. He is also one of the textbook writer. And Mr. Ashok Reddy is SRG English, and he is also the textbook member. So in the process of the textbooks, we have so far developed 4 textbooks, class 6th and 7th, 8th, 9th. See, this is the class 6th, and this is the 7th, and this is the 8th, and this is the 9th. The new textbooks have been developed in a new paradigm. There is a lot of changes have been taken place in the new textbooks, and still the teachers are unable to follow the process, and they are facing some problems. So though their little difference are there, but in understanding the philosophy, they are facing the problems. So that today we have the experts, and we can get the information related to what is the philosophy of the textbook and how to transact it, what are the role of the teacher in these new textbooks. Murthy, shall I ask you one question? What is the need and importance of actually the revision of textbooks oftenly by the state?
Thank you, sir. Textbooks revision is a very compulsory process. It is a continuous process, and it is taken up once in 5 years. It is a very complex process. It takes a longer time. So generally, nowadays the conditions are changing, social conditions are changing, economic conditions are changing, and there are changes in the lifestyles also, and we are living in the globalized world. So taking all these things, all the changes in mind, and also the important change in the field of education, especially the pedagogic shift. Now we have shifted from learning mode of teaching to acquisition mode of teaching. So taking all these things into mind, there is a great need to revise the syllabus. At the same time, in the changing world, the people's aspirations, expectations, and their needs are changing. So all these things have to be incorporated in the new textbooks. Then only they will reflect the realities in the society. And that is the reason the NCERT has taken up the initiative. They revised the textbooks in the year 2006 in tune with the guidelines of the NCF 2005. And after that, all the other states also followed it. And the government of Andhra Pradesh also initiated revising the textbooks in the year 2012 and 13. But before that, a lot of process has taken place. First of all, they have developed the Andhra Pradesh state curriculum framework in 2011, and after that some position papers were developed on every subject. So keeping all these recommendations of various committees, commissions, and also the guidelines of the National Curriculum Framework 2005 and the AP SCF, and also RTA, Right of Children to Free and Compulsory Education 2009, we have incorporated all the guidelines from all these agencies and developed the textbooks.
Okay, Murthy, very good. So you are saying that the curriculum revision is it's a continuous process, and changing as knowledge is a dynamic. We cannot expect the same textbooks for a longer time. So that as per the revision of the National Curriculum Framework, the state has taken up the curriculum and they have revised the textbooks. Okay, good. Sir, in this backdrop, what are the guiding principles while preparing the textbook? What are the guiding principles that the state has adopted in preparation of the textbooks?
Both NCF and SCF have been erected on the pillars of social constructivism and also critical pedagogy. Now, social constructivism is a branch of psychology, but the idea is that individuals cannot construct knowledge. Knowledge is always constructed through collaboration. There is a social dimension for the knowledge construction process. And again, there are certain areas where the shift is very, very conspicuous. For example, we have taken into consideration the experiential orbit of the learners. You cannot design a textbook sitting somewhere and suggest it for all the across the world.
Yes.
So the curriculum has to be locally specific, and then it has to also take care of the what you call the shift in assumptions about learning. It's not information but knowledge. So constructivism simply means every learner has a potential to construct knowledge. So the learner's autonomy is always been focused in both in SCF and also in NCF. Now facilitation has a number of dimensions. He is a diagnostician, he is a co-learner. There are other aspects of facilitation, and most prominently, it's not a business between the teacher and the learner alone. In between, there is a collaborative work, where peer learning happens. So collaboration is one of the thrust areas of the new pedagogy.
Okay.
And then in every classroom, there will be some students who are excluded from the classroom process due to maybe genetic reasons like, say, mentally retarded states or learning difficulties. So the pedagogy that has been conceived in this framework makes the transaction inclusive, where every learner has a potential to grow and also to learn. So that has been taken care of.
So you say that the textbooks are framed based on the principles laid down in the NCF and SCF and position paper of AP. And as you said, the NCF is conceived that the learning should not be rote, and the children should construct the knowledge by sharing their ideas and with their peers, and so a lot of collaboration is need to be incorporated in that new textbooks, I think so. And similarly, now the other principle of the teacher is a facilitator. Now it is not the just to information transfer. It is a kind of experience should be transacted in the classroom. And another thing is, I think the abilities of the teachers also be taken into consideration in while preparation of the textbook process. So on these principles, the government has taken up the textbook development process, and they developed the textbooks. So Ashok Reddy, what are the main features that you have incorporated in the new textbooks?
Yes, sir. As per the expectations of the curriculum framework and other things, these new textbooks are quite different from the previous books. And there are many unique features, salient features are there for these new textbooks, especially these new textbook, whatever we are practicing in our classroom, now present in our classrooms, is called integrated one. Yes. So before there was a separate supplement reader and main textbook. Now this time we are having only one textbook. And not only that, before previous books are single colored books. Now these books are multicolored books. And before the previous books are whatever the content is given, it is isolated one. So present books are thematically planned and they have combined in each unit. So not only that, these new textbooks are giving real life experiences to the children. So the whatever the content material is given in the text or in the picture, wherever the possibility for the acquisition of the learning, so authentic real life situations are given scope in these new textbooks. And not only that, these new textbooks are giving scope for the child to think and learn by himself. So there is a scope for the self learning, and these books are not prepared by someone else. The previous books are used to prepare some experts, bring these things from somewhere other parts of the world or in other countries, from English countries. But these new textbooks are prepared by using the practicing teachers' suggestions, and their aspirations are considered, and even the ELT experts, everyone involved in it. So this is giving a scope for the teacher also, that these things are with their own things. Before this new textbook, there is a separate book for English medium and Telugu medium.
Yeah.
So, but there is a lot of discrimination is there between these two mediums. So really, second language learners deprived of acquisition of learning English. So, but these new textbooks are giving scope. They are given only common book. It is enhancing the ability of the children, whatever the media they may go. So it gives clear edge for the child to get more language construction.
Yeah.
Actually, there is more space for production of language, not
Yes, sir.
reproduction of language.
Yes,
You know.
Yeah.
that is it.
Especially in terms of the production of discourses. You know.
Yes.
It's a discourse-oriented
Yeah.
textbook. You know, thing.
And not only that, in each unit there is a space for the child to assess himself also, how
Yeah.
far he did well. Self-assessment space is there for the child to do.
Yeah. So unlike the earlier textbooks, I think as per your information, the textbooks have many features, have a multicolor and a lot of a thematic approach. Yes. All the aspects, all the language aspects are related to single theme, and there is a self-assessment entries are there for the children, and another thing is there is a common textbooks have developed for both English medium and non-English medium. So of course the language is the same for anybody, whether it is English or Telugu medium, and that every child is expected to produce the same thing. I hope it is a good thing that we have taken up a single textbook. So okay, based on the features we have developed the new textbooks, and what exactly, Mr. Murthy, what exactly the academic standards and the competencies that are going to be achieved through these new textbooks?
Well, there are 6 broader areas of competencies, and the competencies are now we are talking in terms of academic standards. So these academic standards are suggested by the NCERT, and they are 6 broad areas. One is listening and speaking, and the second one is reading and comprehending. The third is conventions of writing. Fourth, grammatical awareness. Fifth, vocabulary, and finally the most important one is creative expression. So these academic standards are to be attained at the end of each year. So there are specific academic standards for every class, for every level. So that is why the teachers have to keep these academic standards in mind while transacting in the classroom. So these academic standards are realized in the form of discourses. So we have a set of discourses, and there is a gradual progression also. There is a hierarchical arrangement of all these discourses from class 1 to class 10. So you know, we have a story, a description, diary, then a slogan, announcement, notice, all these different varieties of 19 varieties of discourses we have incorporated. So now we have to, as Mr. Reddy has said, you know, we have to give in the form of, the teaching should be in the form of discourses, and also assessment should be in the form of discourses.
Total, academic standards are 6 broad areas, that is listening and responding, and reading comprehension, conventions of writing, vocabulary, grammar, and creative expression, that is the discourses, oral and written. I think that every teacher should have a clear awareness about these academic standards before going to teach, what exactly he has to achieve through the classroom process. So unless the teacher have the clear awareness about the these academic standards, I think in the textbook also we have given a teacher instruction at the end of each textbook, so that if the teacher go through the instruction, they can get lot of support and ideas. In addition to that, last year also I think the SCERT has given a handbook, so that it has clearly mentioned about each academic standards, how to realize these academic standards in the classroom. Another sir, in this in academic standards, we are talking about the discourses. I think the discourses we have been talking about these discourses and discourse oriented pedagogy for the last 6-7 years in Andhra Pradesh. most of the teachers still have some doubts regarding to the discourses and what are these discourse and how to realize in the classroom process and what are they. Can you give some of the information regarding to these aspects?
We are using the nomenclature discourse in a pedagogic sense. Even it can be interpreted in a layman's point of view, but here discourse means any linguistic unit which is larger than a sentence.
Yes.
Which implicitly means that you have to abandon the idea of teaching discrete elements like sounds or words or even sentence. These units cannot communicate. Yes. The minimum unit of communication is a discourse. It can be a conversation, it can be a story, it can be an essay, it can be some kind of announcement. This is how language exists in the print media, even in the day-to-day life. That is why the shift is from the discrete elements to a holistic unit of language which is called discourse. Now again, the basic assumption in the discourse treatment is that well, you cannot expect the child to reproduce these things.
Yeah.
Now recall what we did in earlier days. An outline story will be given or something is given. Children learn it by heart or rote memory, and they reproduce in paper.
Yes.
Here there is no space for that. Every production of language is a creative production, and spontaneously the learner have to produce language. And it needs a lot of pedagogic understanding from the part of the teacher. To how to achieve this, how to translate this philosophy into classroom transaction. So as Muti said that there is a hierarchy of discourses. In class 1 you have 4 discourses like conversation, description, or a rhyme or a story. And in the higher classes you have more varieties of discourses. For example, in class 9 you have autobiographical writing or profile writing, that kind of thing.
Drama.
And each discourse has a set of features. And there is a linguistic hierarchy of these features. To give a concrete example, diary writing begins in class 3, but it graduates itself into autobiographical writing in class 9, which means there is a gradation in between. So recall our earlier textbook, it was structurally graded. It's graded series. A certain number of vocabulary items are taught in lower classes, more structures and more vocabulary at the higher level. Instead of this graded series, you have discourse gradation.
Discourse graded series.
So even in class, even in class 1 we expect children to produce a discourse. Not reproduce something, not just give an answer to what is the name of my name is blah blah blah, that kind of thing. So this is the thrust. And again, there's a question probably asked by teachers. How will you take care of the skills? LSRW, listening, speaking, reading, writing.
If you go into the detail, the discourse mode, what about the skills such as listening, speaking, reading, and whether they are going to neglected in the classroom?
How can we neglect? No, because when you say something or when you write something, you are not writing discrete sentences. So these skills, LSRW, are embedded in discourse. A discourse that is belonging to the experiential orbit of the learners. Not something that is coming from outside, kind of thing. The child can talk about his aspiration, his expectations, his perceptions. So every moment in the classroom creates a slot for the learner to speak out, to write about something that he knows, that something that he experiences.
I think that is the authentic communication.
This is the authentic production of language. When you are asking a question and eliciting a response to a question, the child is producing an answer, but that is not the child's idea. It is coming from the textbook. It's a reproduction of language. That's what I said, we concentrate on the production of language rather than the reproduction of language, kind of thing.
So as you said, the discourses, the new textbooks are the classroom performance, the academic standards are based on the discourses. So unlike the earlier, we have the structural graded, based on the structures we have developed the textbooks, and this time the textbooks have been developed based on the discourses.
This creates a problem in the classroom. For example, you also have experienced that teachers are yet adamantly sticking to earlier practices. For example, they read a passage, explain it, and ask a question, give question answers, that kind of thing. They have not realized that the thrust is on the academic standards. Not completing the textbook, from
syllabus.
First word to the last word. It's not the completion of syllabus. Is the child capable of producing these discourses? Enough. Even if you can achieve with the 3 units, fine. But then the other thing you can use as self-learning material. So teachers have to understand the shift in the academic standards. It's not the question of learning some vocabulary items or some grammar items but producing a discourse, and this thrust in every classroom. After every reading passage, this has to happen.
So, as per you, the discourse, the main thrust of the new pedagogy, and so if you develop the discourses in the classroom, oral or written, that all the remaining language elements such as vocabulary, grammar, and listening and speaking can be addressed through discourses.
Obviously, it gets embedded in these discourses.
So, I think the teacher should understand about the discourses. What are the discourses are targeted for a particular class, and what are the features of the discourse, and what are the teacher role in transacting these discourses in the classroom, so that if the teacher have the clear idea about this, and definitely I hope that they can achieve these discourses and this the competencies among the children.
Right.
Okay, so in this background, Mr. Murthy, can you explain something about the process of the textbook, how the textbook have been developed?
Okay, in textbook development, the first step is selection of themes. NCF 2005 has identified certain themes, maybe around 14 themes it has identified. Some of them are neighborhood, for example, family, culture, sports and games, then traveling, then environment, then freedom, humor, mass media, and there are other issues like social issues and education and career. So many themes have been identified. And so what is a theme? Now, in the beginning itself we have discussed. So, now every unit is a theme based unit. So, all the components in the unit are also thematically linked. Nothing is dealt in a discrete manner. So, nothing is isolated. So, all the items or all the components are thematically linked. So, that is why the teacher has to keep these themes in mind while teaching. And apart from this, again there are certain areas like developing or promoting the constitutional values and what do you call other human values. For example, we have themes like human rights, social issues like that. Through these themes, we can, apart from developing the language, we can also promote some human values and constitutional values, democratic values and all. So these things, as Kothari has said, nation is built in the classrooms. So these values are promoted only in the classrooms. And apart from these things, again we will focus more on the development of the language.
So you said that the entire textbook is developed based on certain themes which are identified by the National Curriculum Framework, and each unit is have a theme. And unlike the earlier, all the activities, all the components are also linked with the main theme, and each theme will have another again a specific different language components, like different genres of language they have used in that. For example, like there is a biography, there is a story, and there is a interview form, and different forms of language also exposed through these textbooks. Okay, very nice. Sir, Anandan sir, see, you have been associated with the textbooks. And many people are you have the experience of dealing with different people, and you are also involved in the Kerala textbook development. What exactly in Andhra Pradesh, how the textbook development process have been taken up, and how it has been evolved, the new textbooks?
No, the basic document is of course National Curriculum Framework. So based on that document and the position papers, a series of workshops were conducted, and the participants were a heterogeneous group, consisting of language experts, professors, college people, diet faculties, working teachers, and social activists, and there were deliberation after deliberation on many aspects of teaching, many aspects of curriculum. Now, curriculum revision does not simply mean changing some textbook. It's a whole question of problematizing the whole context of learning, the whole ambience of learning, the material to be used, the environment to be created, what kind of systemic reforms are necessary for that. Say for example, examination, changes in the examination system.
Sir.
So, and the deliberation on whether two books are needed, one for Telugu medium, other one for English medium. So finally we reached a certain consensus. So a single book was suggested. Even in Kerala we have only a single textbook. So it's a democratic process. Unlike the in the earlier years, where some experts are designing textbooks, we are including even working teachers. they are the real experts, who are dealing with the students.
Yes, sir.
An expert can sit in the armchair and dictate certain things, but he will never realize the classroom experience, and that's why even in NCF you focus on the experience of the teachers who are involved in the business of transaction.
Okay.
Anyway, so a series of workshops were conducted, and indirectly it was an augmenting process. It strengthened, empowered the teachers, for example. Now the teachers are capable of talking about the pedagogic shift.
Yes, sir.
Now the textbook production workshop in fact is an empowerment process for everyone who is involved in that. And now teachers have started using, browsing the internet, searching for material. Now we experienced that, when these people were writing textbooks, they were browsing net and coming out with a number of write-ups, looking that and this, that, and there was a discussion on that. So this kind of, I think, we feel very happy about how teachers are getting empowered through a process of curriculum revision. I think that is something to be continued, of course, every development has to be sustainable. So when the teacher is empowered, even without a textbook, teacher can manage. Ideally speaking, the textbook should wither away. The textbook should disappear. The textbook is the barrier between the teacher and the student, At some point it will disappear. This happens that, so there were a series of workshops, and these people referred libraries. They went to FLU library. There was a workshop for empowering writers at RISC, Bangalore, where I myself had taken classes for them. So this is a series of things, a series of workshops were done, and finally the books have come out. And if you compare the earlier production and this year production, you can see the qualitative changes.
Yes, sir.
The last year books in class 6, 7, and you compare with 8 and 9, it's qualitatively much better. The new books are much better. Even in the design of it, the layout of it, the components of it, it have been rethought. And again, in the next revision, it will be much more better. Naturally, sort of thing.
So I think a textbook development process is, of course it's a long, and it is giving a lot of empowerment for the teachers. I think for Andhra Pradesh teachers now empowered in developing material. So now it is localized comparatively previous.
No, any curriculum needs to be localized.
Yeah, localized. And the local people, the practicing teachers involved in the process, I think this process helped them to empower. And now the state is a domain to develop their own material for the children, I think.
And actually AP should feel happy about it.
Sort of. See, the textbook, of course, it is an important tool for the teacher as well as the child, but it doesn't mean that it is only the material available for the child and teacher. The teacher should go beyond the textbook. Of course, in this textbook, the national experts and the state level experts working in the colleges and universities and the practicing teacher involved in this, and in the textbook development process, it's a long process. They identified the themes, they identified the discourses, and they have identified what are the language items should be like vocabulary, grammar, and exegesis. I think this year also we have included projects in every unit and study skills. Some of the new items also included, unlike the earlier textbooks. I think it's a long process, and a series of workshops. The teacher attended the series of workshops in every year in development process, and this team has went to even Udaipur and Vidyabhavan Society and RIE Bangalore. They visited as you said, in the CFL library. They met many people, they interacted with the people, a lot of sharing has happened. Really it's a long process, and it's a kind of empowering process for the teachers really. How it has been evolved, I think it's an evolving process. Textbooks is an evolving process, it's not a static one. Okay, Mr. Ashok Reddy, you see in these new textbooks, we are talking about recently the continuous competency evaluation. So what exactly, how the continuous competency evaluation has been incorporated in these new textbooks?
So these new books clearly giving scope for the child's individual autonomous learning. Even the evaluation, till now whatever we are having previously conventional way, examination in the form of pen, paper, and a particular period only, quarterly, half yearly, annually, like that. Only during the days whatever the performance child do on the paper, that will be the final. So whatever the ability is performing in the classroom, never considered. Whatever the creative things he is doing, never considered for his growth assessment. But this CCE giving clearly scope for the child to perform his own experiences and to assess the child's own individual real growth, real improvement.
Yeah.
So this CCE, whatever we are practicing in the classroom, is in the two forms. One is formative assessment, other one is summative assessment. In the formative assessment, teacher observes the child every day in the classroom, whatever the how the child is performing in each while transacting in the discourses, and how the child is interacting with the children, with his peer group and with the teacher, and even it gives space for the child to get more learning also is taking place in the evaluation also.
Yeah.
So teacher's role is to observe the child, to assess him the way he is performing in the classroom. So this is formative assessment. Here teacher also should be conscious about each individual's performance, and he should assess him regularly.
Yeah.
So this is under the formative assessment, and the other one is summative assessment. Still there is a scope for the child to write his own.
Yeah.
The previous question papers examination system only encourages the rote learning, by hearting, and that too content based, whatever the copy and paste system.
Yeah.
So whatever the content is given in the guide somewhere, question paper, some previous papers, just he will by heart and represent it. Nothing is carrying forward.
Yeah.
So here in this new CCE, under the new CCE pattern, so child reflects his own experiences in the form of written way.
Yeah.
So it gives space, scope for the child to present. So for example, write a letter if you are there in that place. So think you are there, imagine you are in that story, you are being a character in that story. So think and imagine and write. So there is a place for the child to think on his own and write his own, so that he can create more language in of his own. So in this way, this CCE giving clear support for more
learning,
acquiring of language, construction of child's own language.
And I think teachers should have better understanding about how CC is translated in the classroom.
Sure.
So we have a modular approach. For example, there is a pre-reading session, and then a reading session, and also post-reading session. And every slot there is a space for assessment. And different tools are used. For example, the portfolio of the learner or the notebook of the learner itself is certain evidence. What kind of process has been experienced by the learner. And then we in the position paper we have very clearly mentioned that there is two kind of formative assessment. One is assessment for learning, and the other one is assessment as learning. Where assessment itself is a learning process. That is why in the textbook we have self-assessment tools, where the child is sharing something with the others, an introspective process is happening, and he compares his writing with others and says, and that process itself is a kind of learning. Therefore we call it assessment here works as learning tool. And when the teacher is going through the portfolio, finds some problems or errors in the writing, gives feedback, not uses a pencil and says this is or using reading wrong, saying this right or this wrong. The teacher gives positive feedback, constructive feedback, and every feedback the teacher gives help the learner to rethink and reframe and come out with a better output.
The stress also will go away.
The assessment is for learning. And the other thing is for social auditing, assessment of learning. How much the child learn. Actually, the thrust, NCF also says very clearly, the thrust should be to test not what the child does not know, but what the child knows. What is the purpose of an examination? Are you testing what the child does not know, or are you testing what the child knows? I think this is a major shift.
I think the CCE, I think the continuous competency evaluation, the purpose is to know the children abilities in producing their own and creative aspects, not to just to assess the children by heart or rote learning or from the same whatever the given at end of the textbook or the items given in the textbook to reproduce in the examination. I think the teacher have the clear awareness about this, and day-to-day classroom experience itself is a tool and for the to take the performance of the children. In this context, Murthy garu, what is the role of the teacher exactly in this backdrop of these new principles and the CCE and the discourse system pedagogy? What is the role exactly we expect in transacting these new textbooks?
Teacher has to change actually. It means he has to change from a teacher to a facilitator. He should become a facilitator. And his role is to create meaningful situations, real life situations in the classroom, and involve the children in the process of teaching learning. And also he has to give rich linguistic input in the form of instructions in the form of what you call interactions. So interaction is very, very important in the classroom, and at the same time the teacher has to first understand the underlying principles of the textbook, and he has to understand the transaction process. So because there is, as sir has said, there is a major shift in the what do you call pedagogy. The teacher's role has to be completely changed here. So he should not be a mere transmitter of information. He should what do you call allow the children to transact the knowledge. So in this way, as constructivism says, constructivism believes that the child has the what do you call ability to construct his own knowledge. So that is why we should provide opportunity or space for the child to construct his own knowledge. So in this way, the teacher has to first keep in mind all the competencies that he has to realize at the end of the year.
Okay.
So accordingly, he has to create activities and what do you call allow the children to build up the language. And at the same time, he should believe that textbook is an aid, it's not a crutch, and he should not completely depend on the textbook only. He should allow the children to think beyond the textbook. And at the same time, children, I mean examinations, as far as CC is concerned, examinations, it is not to test the textbook knowledge. Because when you depend too much on the textbook only, I mean a lot of tension or stress in the minds of the children. So it means if you conduct examinations based on the textbook only or content based questions, the children have to, I mean they will be compelled to memorize the things. So memorization leads to stress and strain. So that is why he has to avoid that. And at the same time, the teacher has to shift from learning mode of teaching to the acquisition mode of teaching. So in acquisition mode of teaching, the teacher has to create a favorable atmosphere in the classroom, natural learning situations in the classroom, so that the children can learn language on their own. They acquire the language on their own. So this type of things also he has to understand. At the same time, democratic classroom situation he has to create. He has to respect the child's opinions, thoughts, feelings, and he should allow the children to speak in the classroom. It should not be a teacher dominated classroom. The children's voices, their ideas are to be respected. At the same time, nowadays we are speaking in terms of multilingualism. So the teacher has to respect the child's language also. Of course, sometimes the children may come out with their ideas in their own mother tongue. So at the time, the teacher has to allow them, and they allow them to express their ideas freely. Then, if it is possible, he has to megaphone them by translating them. So of course, translation is a last tool, actually speaking. We have to adopt techniques like code switching and all. So translation, of course it happens, but it should not be a frequent one. So whenever the child is struggling, the teacher has to allow them to speak in their mother tongue. So that way mother tongue is to be respected. So all these things have to be.
You say that the teacher role is they have to redesign their role, redefine their role. You see, the teacher role is in a way a facilitator rather than just mere giving the person the information, I think.
One more thing also, sir. Actually, the teacher has to read the instructions first. You see, they are given at the end of the textbook, the classroom process and everything. Most of the teachers, unfortunately, they are not, turning the pages and reading them. If they go through the process of the textbook classroom process, they will definitely understand the main crux of this philosophy.
But thing is, what we are suggesting is the new process. So because this process will help the children in acquiring the language, not to memorize the language, and so that the teacher role is act as a facilitator, not to teach and everything, and the textbook is one of the instruments, and it is not everything for the, I think. So these are the important things the teacher should keep in mind. Sir, Anandan sir, see, in this backdrop, what are the new innovations that are pedagogical innovations that are conceived in this new pedagogy or new approach?
Noteworthy innovation is using classroom theatre. Even earlier children used to perform dramas. but then that is an activity for a number of selected students.
Yes, yes, yes.
Now here we are using drama or theatre as a pedagogical tool for learning language.
Sure.
It makes a lot of difference,
Yeah.
In primary classes especially, you have a number of stories, and these stories will really yield to production of theatre.
Yeah.
Children can enact the sequence of events and deliver the dialogues, and other features of drama also can be incorporated. And the advantage of using theatre in the classroom as a pedagogical tool is that it is inclusive. Every learner, even the low proficient learners, will have a role in the theatre, And we are using 3 different types of theatre. One is of course the regular drama, which is the most common interpretation of theatre. The other one is choreography.
Yeah.
You are using choreography as a pedagogical tool to understand the poem, and also to interpret the poem, to develop a critical appreciation of the poem. So the process of choreographing a poem helps the learner to internalize a poem and also discover the underlying themes in that, and other aspects of the poem also.
Yeah.
And the third one is narrative. In primary classes especially, we are using narratives. Now narratives also have a common theatrical elements. The voice modulation and the optimal gestures used by the teacher, by eye-hand coordination. These are all theatrical components. So these 3 are now incorporated in the textbook as pedagogical tools, which will contribute to much learning.
Yeah, teacher can convert into the textbook into theater, and you can have the children's. You can create an involvement of the children in creating a performance like the role play, drama, and choreography. I think in this type of activities, most of the all the children will participate.
They will be engaged in that. And we have suggested the process of choreographing, the process of theatre in the textbook itself. We have suggested that. So it will be easier, and it will be amazing to see how children in class 2, class 3, for example, our Narkatpalli experience in Nalgonda, we watch children in class 2 performing their own theatre, not reproducing from the textbook. They conceive a theme and then come out with the actions and dialogues of their own. This is something very creative and very productive. And I think AP is one of the second state in the whole country where theatre is used as a pedagogical tool. The first one is of course Kerala, and there are only 2 states in the whole country where there is a pedagogical shift. Not in other states.
So good sir, if the teacher understand the role of the theatre in the classroom, so that definitely I hope this theatre definitely will help the teacher and the children in achieving the academic standards very easily, because it's a kind of giving a lot of enthusiasm among the children.
Performance, they have to perform language.
Yes.
Theatre is not something that written. It is there, and you have to think and perform.
Sir, in this context, you are talking about many things. You see, we have the another thing is the grammar. What exactly is the role of the teaching grammar in English language classroom?
Well, there is a misconception regarding teaching grammar. Most teachers believe that you have to teach grammar without which children cannot learn English. Well, the teachers have to understand that you are teaching grammar with a specific purpose, not with the idea that by teaching grammar they can learn English in a better way. Absolutely no. There is no research evidence to show that by learning grammar your English will improve. Well, grammar is useful because grammar is a knowledge system by itself. It's a knowledge domain like geography, physics, like chemistry. So formal grammar is one thing and knowledge of language is a different thing. You cannot equate the thing together, So you have to have a knowledge about language, and you also have to have knowledge of language. Of language is something that every native speaker uses. Now even if you take British speakers or any native speaker of English, how many of them know formal grammar? How many of them can say this is a present tense sentence or past tense? They cannot.
Even in Telugu also
they do not know. Nobody knows. When you are seeing sentence in Telugu, you are using grammar, but you are not aware of the grammatic terminology. So formal grammar is there to use meta language. Meta language means using language to talk about language. And it is convenient when you are editing something. Well, here a preposition is missing, or a noun is missing, or a verb is in a different form. This terminology might help at a later stage. So in the acquisition paradigm in the primary classes, absolutely there is no need to have formal teaching of grammar. And in our classroom process, grammar is incorporated in different ways. For example, while children are writing something, teacher gives feedback. Teacher asks questions like, have you left out any sentence, words in the sentence? Well, that affects syntax, or is the word order proper? have you used the right word form here, or do you want to change this word form? These suggestions will help the learners think and then come out with an alternative.
So they will get some awareness on that.
So if they do not come out with an alternative, teacher has the freedom to give the correct options, you know.
Yeah.
So this is indirectly they are developing the grammatical awareness, not by explicit teaching of grammar.
Yeah.
Nobody is going to gain by saying that this is active voice, this is passive voice, this is direct voice, that kind of thing.
Of course.
And grammar is only in the textbook.
Yeah.
And there are other questions like, you know, how do you approach grammar?
Yeah.
There are grammar lessons, these are not meant for teaching, but teacher has to ask some questions where they fall back on the textbook, locate this grammatical expression and derive the meaning and come to an agreement on that, and teacher gives feedback on that.
Yeah.
Even the whole approach to teaching grammar has to be changed. I'm a linguist now. I have the current understanding about teaching grammar, and what the current research says that, you know, you are teaching formal grammar with only a simple objective.
Yeah.
To bring, you know, a subconscious knowledge to a conscious domain.
Yes, yes.
Subconsciously you have acquired language and you are bringing this subconscious knowledge to a conscious domain. That is the whole use of teaching formal grammar.
Yeah.
But then we cannot ignore that there is an editing process in the classroom.
Yes.
Any work written by the children individually and then refined the groups and presented by the groups, teacher has to edit them.
Edit.
And editing has certain levels.
Yeah.
We edit from the discourse features.
Yes.
A essay has its own feature. A story has another set of features. So the first kind of editing is checking the features of the discourse.
Yeah.
And second domain of editing is the sentence grammar, you know.
Yeah.
Syntax, for example.
Yes.
Whether the sentence structure is well formed.
Yeah.
And then the morphological problems like, you know, tense or agreement or prefix or suffix, that kind of thing. And again, the writing conventions like using punctuation or spelling, all kind of thing. So this is all taken care of in the classroom process.
Yeah.
And editing is one of the strongest input that the child can get in the classroom transaction.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, teachers neglect editing.
Yes.
Yeah.
I have visited 100 schools and I haven't seen any teacher doing editing systematically.
New textbooks also demand the teacher professional development. The teacher should have a clear understanding about the editing process, whatever the children write.
Yeah, one thing is, you know, when the teacher is, you know, sticking to the classroom process, it takes up teacher empowerment also.
I mean, scope for the teacher empowerment. I think the teacher use the language, proper language, so that definitely it will indirectly the children will get lot of ideas from the teacher, and it itself is a, awareness about the grammar and whatever the teacher do, the editing process every day. I think through editing the vocabulary and the punctuation, conventions of writing and the grammar, everything will be addressed. I think.
You know, the best thing that teacher can do is stop teaching.
Yes.
Yeah. Ask questions.
Yes,
ask relevant questions.
Yeah.
Ask analytic questions which make the learners think and come out with their own ideas and then give feedback.
Yes.
Why should the teacher teach every syllable?
Yes, it's not necessary.
The teacher has to die in the classroom and get reborn as facilitators.
Yes,
who understand the child, who understand the nature of learning, who understand the nature of the child, who understand the thinking process. Then only real transaction.
I think teachers should redefine their roles in the classroom as a facilitator.
Yeah.
Okay, in this context, Murthy garu, see what professional development does the teacher need in this context of a new pedagogy and transacting the new process, classroom process?
Actually, teacher should be an ever learner.
Yeah.
So it's a continuous process. Of course, he has to update his knowledge as well as language also. So teacher proficiency is very, very important nowadays. So though we have brought several changes in the philosophy, the pedagogy and all, the common problem among the teachers is teachers proficiency. So they have to read books. They have to read books. So reading should be a very important habit. It should become a habit for a teacher, for a language teacher especially. Nowadays, you know, you have plenty of electronic media. Same time, internet is there. So just sit in front of a computer half an hour every day. You have plenty of websites which are promoting English language. So the British Council is there, and the IFLU, and so many organizations are nowadays, even private websites are there. So they are promoting plenty of
even
language.
blogs. Some of the blogs
are there.
See, I am coming from Kerala. In Kerala, you have hundreds of schools, their own blogs and their own websites. Hundreds of teachers who open their own blogs. Now, this is something, you know, which is very, very effective. You know. Now, how many teachers in AP go for blogging? you know.
Yes, yes, very few.
So
no,
they should
right?
cultivate this
Kind of
habit.
thing.
They should
Yeah.
cultivate the habit.
How
of-
much of sharing is happening between the teacher community?
Yes, of
Now,
course.
you are doing some innovative
Really,
program in the
it's,
classroom.
very less.
Somebody sitting Vizag is aware of that or not?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
what kind of sharing is possible through this electronic media, you know,
Yeah.
the high-tech classroom?
I think teacher professional development can be possible only whenever they think about that professional development. They need, you see, government also have the, thinking about to give some trainings and all these things, but at the same time teacher also should think about his or her
Exactly.
own professional development. Definitely then it will be useful for the
Nowadays,
the
most of the
teachers.
teachers, 100% teachers
Yeah.
have mobiles with them.
Yes,
So
yes.
mobile can become an effective tool in the hands of a teacher.
Yes,
So
yes, yes.
every mobile has a memory card.
Yes.
So he can record some of the important clippings, and he can make them use it in the classroom, and he can of course he can give the children, and they will listen to wonderful linguistic input, and he can utilize it for asking questions.
Yes,
and
yes,
he
yes.
can understand, check their what do you call listening ability and all.
Right.
Yeah, I think this program will definitely be helpful for the teachers, and I request the teachers should go through the handbook and they can interact with other fellow teachers. So these type of programs will help for the teacher development. Thank you.